another top minister saying, the U.S. and Egypt have a long history. Let us respect that. There seems to be a lot of tension with this government to put up.
I couldn't quite hear the question, but in terms of our relationship with Egypt, I think that's the reason why President Obama and the administration has been rather tentative in terms of how we relate to what's going on. It is somewhat surprising in view of the fact that we had our CIA director who had at least indicated he believed that President Mubarak was going to announce...
Come on, Obama, stand the fuck up about this.
What he meant by that, but clearly President Mubarak did not mean he was leaving the country or leaving entirely everything over to his vice president.
What do you make of that, Secretary? That's a very important point because unlike the Shah of Iran, of course, he got out of the country, was started out of the country in the end. Mubarak tonight saying, I will never leave Egypt until I am buried in the soil of Egypt. What do you make?
Well, that's a pretty declarative statement. If he has indicated he's not leaving, he's going to leave on his terms, and I'm not sure exactly how to interpret that, whether it's, fight to the finish, if that's what it involves. But it's so volatile right now that the key players, I think, are going to be, obviously, the military. Whether they're going to, in fact, back up President Mubarak and his determination to see this through to September, or whether they're going to throw their support to the people. If the people start to really turn violent, it's going to result in a real challenge for the military. What do they do under these circumstances? So I think we'll see consequences played out economically. I think that the international community is going to really start shorting out in terms of investments, at least in the foreseeable future, and the volatility is not going to be helpful to the Egyptian people.
Well, I think that's an understatement, Secretary, and as you know, I sort of like the Fox nerd here. I just follow the markets or those that are available to trade on here in the Middle East, and they more or less seem to be saying, this country's a basket case. We're shorting the pound, their currency. It's been shellacked. It's a good thing their markets have been closed because anything that trades relating to Egypt is also getting shellacked. Central banks the region over have been buying up the pound to shore it up to little avail. The banks are working on an abbreviated schedule, limiting how much money folks, including those protesters, could take out. And now the demand they are demanding set down immediately is not. This cannot be good.
It can't be good. As a matter of fact, the initial news this morning that President Mubarak was going to step aside and relinquish power entirely, the market started to respond in a positive
You're right about
fashion.
that.
And so now we're seeing what the consequences are going to be of this. I think it's very dangerous. President Mubarak has indicated foreign authorities butt out, meaning the United States as well as EU and others. And so this is his determination. He's going to stay and see it through. Now, if this statement had been coupled, and again, this is hypothetical, had it been coupled with a number of measures to remove the emergency law, to restore internet service, to call for the constitution of a election commission, an independent commission, independent judges, I think that might have taken the edge off. But I think absent that, you're going to see a pretty volatile reaction coming out of the crowd.
One quick last question, Secretary. What did you make of this that we're showing the markets fall off both in Israel today and in, I think we have Saudi Arabia as well, guys? So bottom line is, those are the two prominent markets that were hit, although we must stress that in Saudi Arabia, it has come back from some of its steepest losses when this all began. Having said that, Secretary, the Saudi king reportedly phoned President Obama to essentially say, lay off on this whole Mubarak thing, because if you withdraw your aid, we'll fill the gap. We'll essentially prop him up. What did you make of that?
Well, I make of it that the Saudi king is very concerned about the stability of Egypt itself. Egypt has a peace agreement, a peace treaty with Israel. It has been very much opposed to Iran moving forward with nuclear weapons. It's been very much opposed to shipping of weapons, smuggling them through Egyptian territory into Gaza. And so the Saudi king has looked to Egypt as being a real stabilizing force in the region vis-a-vis Iran, which now the Saudis, the UAE, and most of the other Gulf states see Iran as the real threat to peace and stability as opposed to what it used to be as far as they're concerned, Israel. So there's been a shift, and I think this is one of the reasons why King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia has spoken out in this fashion to say that they prefer to have stability as opposed to seeing what took place in Iran. And Iran still is the biggest threat to their security going forward to the future.
I would imagine, Secretary, they're more concerned about Iran than they ever would be about Israel.
Exactly.
Secretary, thank you very much for taking the time.
Pleasure to be with you.
We got Rania Sadawi, the American kid at Cairo, who's been so great talking to us and dealing with this crisis throughout. Rania, you were in there, just left the crowd in Cairo, or in the square. What was there? What is your reaction?
Shock, disbelief, anger, but definitely not defeated.
I take it, Ron, is anyone going to leave now, or they trust Mubarak at his word that things are going to be okay, or they plan to stay there?
Definitely not. He just pissed off a whole bunch of people, let me tell you. I cannot even tell you. I don't even have the words to express it right now. It's been unbelievable. I mean, beforehand, we were cautiously optimistic. We were hearing reports that he was going to step down, transfer power to the army, that he had even left the country, and then he got on there and gave us this patronizing speech, and he just ignited the fire.
Well, he
ignited the fire.
Sympathy
it's going to be
those
crazy.
who've been killed over the last few weeks here.
Killed by his own people.
Right, but I wanted to follow up on one thing he said that struck me, that he was sending out a guarded message. We hear you, it's time to move on. Again, I'm paraphrasing. His vice president, Suleiman, had more or less said the same thing. In other words, all right, we hear you protesters, we hear you, Rania, let's just take a chill pill and move on here. So I'm wondering, if you don't, and the military comes in, what's going to happen?
Well, you know, people are already going up to the military and in the square and asking them, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do? There are even reports saying that some military people put down their guns and joined the protesters. I didn't see that specifically. I was just told that a little bit ago.
What did you see the military doing? Have they ever moved on the protest? What have they been doing?
No, the military just stands by idly. They're very sweet and considerate. They don't, you know, they're not like actively trying to stop people from entering the square. They've been, in my experience, pretty neutral.
Yeah, but eventually they take their orders from president or the vice president, the top military commander who is the president or the vice president, and those guys seem to be saying, Rania, all right, the time for being nice is over.
Well, I guess we'll have to see. I mean, Egyptian people traditionally put a lot of trust into the army because the army is seen at the end of the day as for the people. And I don't know, honestly. I don't know what to make of all this. I mean, I think people are asking now, what is the army going to do? I think at some point the army is going to have to step in because clearly Mubarak is not stepping down anytime soon.
All right.
On his own.
Rania, thank you very much, Rania Sadawi. Just as we approach the halfway point of this hour here, those of you watching at home, we have just heard from the Egyptian president the second time in as many weeks, also with a fairly late night address to that country. It was about 11 p.m. Imagine if our president addressed the nation at that time here. But they might be just night owls there. But the bottom line was he was saying, I'm not stepping down. I'm going to wait till September. The vice president's going to assume my duties, but I'm still going to be sticking around. He also said, in a reference to those protesters, we cannot allow this chaos to continue. Former presidential nominee, Republican Senator John McCain, on the phone with us right now. Senator, what do you make of what Hosni Mubarak said tonight?
Neil, I think he tried to split the baby, and that doesn't work. And I'm afraid now that the situation may approach much more of a crisis than it's been already a serious crisis. In other words, what does the army do? What do the demonstrators do? Since they're obviously not achieving their goal of his removal. And the sad aspect of this, and the unfortunate aspect of it, is that every day that goes by, the more likely it is that extremist elements will have a greater and greater influence and even hijack what was initially, certainly in my view, young people demonstrating in the streets, making